President Trump's tariff war is far from over. He's announced plans to impose 100% duties on the imported semiconductors, though it's unclear when this large levy will take effect.
Demand for semiconductors and microchips have skyrocketed in recent years, with the tech becoming vitally important, influencing every major segment of the global economy. The vast majority of the world's most advanced chips come from the Taiwanese chipmaker TSMC, whose customers include Apple and Nvidia.
And at the same time, Washington is targeting one of its largest trading partners. President Trump has doubled India's tariff as punishment for buying Russian oil. This brings duties on the country's goods to 50%. New Delhi will have 21 days to respond before the higher rate goes into effect. And India's foreign ministry has called the hike extremely unfortunate. For more insight, let's speak now with Dr. Susan Stone, who's a credit union SA chair of economics at the University of South Australia. Dr. Stone, thank you very much for joining us. I want to start with India. Could you talk to us about the immediate impact of these tariffs if they do go into effect, and which Indian sectors would feel the biggest impact, and how much impact would that have on Indian businesses as well as American consumers?
Good morning. Yes, India has really become one of the major trading partners with the U.S. It used to be several years ago that it was dominated by services, but now it really is dominated by goods trade. And this goods trade, the three big ones are really pharmaceuticals, we see jewelry and linen. And as a matter of fact, household textiles are from India account for about 36% of imports to the U.S. So it's a big market for both the U.S. and India. But pharmaceuticals, of course, are a major concern. India has really increased its manufacturing of not just generic medical medications, but also things like gauze and wraps and other types of ancillary pharmaceutical products. And these will get hit hard if they have this additional 25% tariff. And plus, we don't know what's coming down the line for other pharmaceuticals.
Okay. Pharmaceuticals, smartphones, ironically, of course, petroleum exports as well. These are expected to possibly be put on an exemption list from the Trump administration on those tariffs. Could any of these, though, Dr. Stone, provide any avenue for further tariff relief, and how?
Right. The pharmaceuticals and the semiconductors are going to might be exempted insofar as we're waiting to see what those sector tariffs turn out to be. So they may be exposed to other tariffs from the 323 investigations. And as you pointed out, smartphones, which is really interesting because Apple has been disinvesting in China, trying to get around trade tensions with that country, and have been increasing investments in India. And now India is a major source for smartphones and technology exports to the U.S. But now Apple is talking about moving more of its manufacturing capacity back to the U.S. So it really is kind of trying to chase the best place to place manufacturing where it might not be so exposed to all of these tariffs. And India, as you point out, with the refined oil, Indian refineries, the Trump tariffs on the exports from Russian oil, which India is the second largest behind China of importer of Russian oil. It's going to hurt Indian refineries that then export that, because they'll be subject to those tariffs if they continue to source their oil from Russia.
So, Dr. Stone, India said that it will take all necessary steps to protect its interests, but what realistic options do they have? And can New Delhi absorb this kind of economic pressure, or will it be forced to compromise?
Well, we've seen this play out before with other trading partners with the U.S. The Trump administration comes out with very large, very aggressive tariff threats. There's meetings, there's negotiations, there's some framework agreements put in place with the details to be worked out later. India may find itself in that kind of a situation where it's able to kind of agree in principle to modify certain behaviors or certain economic decisions it may have in the future, and let the details of that work out. However, the U.S. administration already has sanctions on those countries that import Venezuelan oil. So it may be that they are very adamant about these Russian sanctions. But if things break through with the Russian-Ukraine war, if we reach some kind of progress on that front, it could be that Trump also uses that as an excuse to kind of back off these tariffs. So I think the next 21 days, a lot could happen that it may not come into play. But if it does, as I said, India's been importing from Russia because of the Ukraine war and the fact that countries like the EU have not been importing from Russia, been looking for other sources, which has been making it more competitive in the global market for oil. And therefore, India needs to go to a source that it can actually access at a reasonable rate. So the 25% tariffs will have a big impact on their refineries.
Dr. Stone, speaking of what else could happen, Mr. Trump's ordered his team to look for other countries also importing Russian oil, signaling that they may be subject to India's fate. So there are two parts to my question here. Where does this put the done deals then with the EU or Turkey? And of course, there's the big August 12th deadline with China, which is the country that imports Russian oil the most in the world.
Yes, that's a good point. Turkey currently is facing 15% reciprocal tariffs. So relatively speaking, it's doing quite well in that sense. It is a major exporter behind China and India of Russian oil. That may become an issue for Turkey. But, of course, the big one is China. They are the major importer. There's a lot else going on. But China, the trade with China for the U.S. is about 5 times the size of it is with India. And there are these ongoing negotiations. It would be difficult. I think Trump would have a difficult time imposing these tariffs on China. China's been showing its willingness to retaliate. And of course, it has the economic heft behind it to make those retaliatory measures more painful maybe than other countries to the U.S. So it'll be interesting to see if the U.S. threatens China, and then if it does, how that plays out. As you point out, over the next few days, they're supposed to have an agreement. But of course, the Trump administration has already signaled that there'll probably be an extension to that August 12th deadline. So they may put the 25% tariffs on the table with their negotiations with China, and then just, kick it down the road and just say they're negotiating.
And Dr. Stone, before we let you go, I just want to get your thoughts on Mr. Trump's tariffs on chips. I mean, the idea is to push companies to manufacture domestically, but since building chip factories is expensive and it takes a long time, is that a realistic expectation?
Yeah, over the long run, maybe, but you're right. These factories are very large. They require a huge amount of capital investment and a long time to build. Plus, even once you build the manufacturing capacity, there's a lot of inputs that you need to actually make the chips. Those inputs aren't all coming from the U.S. They're going to end up having to import some of those inputs anyway. So even if they move the manufacturing capacity back to the U.S., they may theoretically be facing large tariffs on the inputs they need to make those chips. So it's really a difficult situation. You might think that they may move parts toward the end or other areas that maybe don't require the same kind of capital investment back to the U.S. And then this way they can say they have moved some manufacturing capacity back to the U.S. And the final thing is, they're looking to create jobs and opportunities, but much of this process is automated. The number of jobs that will be created remains to be seen. They're highly skilled jobs, which are already under a great deal of pressure in the U.S. for competition from other sources. So it's really maybe not as viable an economic strategy as the Trump administration would hope it would be.
Okay. Dr. Stone, I'm afraid we have to leave it there for now, but thank you very much for your time. Always great to have you on the show. Susan Stone, Credit Union SA Chair of Economics at the University of South Australia.